It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome! Hey, everybody. Welcome in. My name is Chris. This is a show with magnetic powers. Thank you so much for listening today. Hello there. I hope you're doing well. I am back in the swing. We are making shows, 5 shows per week, 6 straight weeks leading up to the 2026 season beginning, and also along the way getting us all ready for fantasy drafts. On Monday's show, we talked about the camp stories we're most paying attention to, and the last one you heard us discussing was the dueling potential for protracted camp holdouts for Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. As of this morning, boom, Bijan Robinson is signed, $51 million guaranteed. He is also sealed and delivered. I do not believe Gibbs will be far behind, and we can relax and draft those guys in relative comfort at the top of every non-Superflex draft. I don't really think it was ever a consideration that Robinson would get deep into August without a new deal, but, you know, you got enough stress in your life. Anyway, about this stupid thing that we talk about and everything else, nice to know this is not a stress point going forward. What else is on a Yacht Possum's mind? Why, I'm glad you asked.
Time for your snarky email.
Oh, Christopher Harris. I sound so good. Say like angel singing.
It sounds exactly like angel singing. That is what it sounds like. That's right. Send me your snarky emails to heyharris@harrisfootball.com. Snark it up. Now, thank you very much for the very many nice emails that I've gotten in the past few days. The ones are just about how happy you are that the show is back. Just because I don't read them here doesn't mean I don't love getting them. You all are absolutely the best, and I love you. And I've gotten a whole bunch of bribe suggestions too, and I'm going to be incorporating those. But let's do the snarky ones, shall we? Actually, the first one's not snarky at all. It's Jake Wasikowski in Nebraska. This one came back in the spring. Hey, Harris, been with you since day one on the little podcast. Purchased every almanac, but this year is extra special. My cousin, Riley Nowakowski, got drafted in the 5th round to the Steelers. He's got an incredible story. He's a tight end, fullback, anything you need him to do player. I know that doesn't qualify for a top 30 almanac profile at a position that shouldn't be in fantasy, but if there's any way you can put him in the last tight end with 1-sentence blurb, maybe a cousin Josh Blast, it would be an honor. In the almanac or not, I will be drafting him in every draft. That is lovely, Jake. Congratulations. You're right, Riley did not make the almanac, but I hope the shout out here more than makes up for it. My pal Matt Simon from Parts Known in New England sent me this one back in May. Hey Harris, what the is this? I want a new audiobook by the real Christopher Harris, not some fantasy writer trying to cash in on your good fantasy football name. And Matt has included a screen capture from Audible that says, now available from an author you like, because AI is great. And the graphic reads, Magi's Curse, a new novel from Christopher James Harris. Matt's email continues, I hope you're doing well, despite having been cursed, apparently, by the Magi. What did the possums ever do to them, I wonder? Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Hey, if you like the guy with this name, it's kind of a similar name, you might like this one. Kenny Crocomo in New Jersey. Hey, Harris, I teach business classes at a technical high school, and a pair of my students presented on NFL salary cap structure, purpose of agents, etc. for their final project. I know this will probably be the first 100 grade I'll ever give. Next generation of Yacht Possums on the way. And Kenny put a screen capture of this presentation. These are high school kids who understand this. And the graphic says, why the NFL salary cap is nonsense. The main reasons: spread money, bonuses, restructures contracts. Wonderful. And Kenny follows it up saying, also, quick note, I was an accountant before and hated it. You had an episode a few years ago about talking about why you left ESPN. That was definitely one of the many, many contributing factors to my career switch. I've always wanted to say thanks for that. The show is so stupid, but also so great. That is amazing, Kenny. That's great. Brad S. from Parts Unknown. Hey, Harris, I love the pod so much, but I fear if I'm any nicer, you won't read my email on the pod, so I'll get to it. Whenever I draft a personal flag player, I always struggle to trade them. I just have a hard time reassessing their value and letting go of players. I always find I draft well, but I struggle to make moves throughout the season. Do you have any insight on your philosophy on this? Sorry to have such a broad question. It is a broad question, but I think it's a good one. And we can spend a moment. We've all certainly had that feeling where we believe, and then the struggle for that player starts early, and we try and believe harder. Now he's a great value. Maybe I should trade for him in all of my other leagues. And then sometimes that's right, and it works out. And sometimes he turns into Chuba Hubbard in 2025, you know what I mean? I honestly think, as so much in this dumb game, as so much in life, there just isn't going to be one overall answer that can account for all the cases. Sometimes you just get left holding the bag, and it turns out we were just wrong. I am going to be wrong a lot because I'm making a call on literally every player, but you have to make a lot of calls just to draft and maintain one single fantasy team. And so, sometimes we're just going to be wrong. That's a wishy-washy answer. But Brad, I know a lot of people share the same feeling, the same question. So I'm glad just to say, I think some level of stubbornness in our beliefs in the NFL as in life can be a good thing, but there comes a point where we can be too stubborn. The evidence keeps piling up. Even if it's a little late to recoup full value, there comes a point where we should allow our minds to be changed. Colin P. from Parts Unknown. Just heard you read the Jaden Daniels profile on a July episode and heard the Cousin Josh part in which he describes ordering a martini outside the U.S. and one time he got a peppertini. Colin says, the peppertini sounded kind of good, actually. I'm surprised Josh didn't love the idea. A peppertini and a slice of pizza. What's more New York than that? Shane Nicholson in Massachusetts. Hey, Harris. I normally do not miss such important announcements. Did you not explain why you didn't return to the land of lawnmowers in Massachusetts in the summer? While I won't take it personally, I do want to know the details. If you did, in fact, tell the audience why, apologies, and I will listen better in the future. Shane, I'm not sure if I said anything. The lawnmowers lobbied very hard for my return, but I did stay in Los Angeles this summer. So I was not a bi-coastal elite Lisa sleeper. I missed parts of going back, but I hadn't done a summer in LA since that COVID summer of 2020, and I kind of wanted to see what it would be like. I knew that I was going to be hunkering down because I knew that cumulative press was being invented and the Almanac was being written, and I was also working on a different book, and I kind of didn't want thunderstorms or humidity, and I wanted softball. My softball team in Amherst got canceled last summer, but it was no more insidious than that. And the moment I decided not to go back, I started getting texts from Massachusetts friends who didn't know I was not coming back, and they were like, hey, buddy, you want to go golfing? I'm like, hey, if you sent me that text last year, maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation. Kevin Kuntz in Minnesota. Hey, Harris. With you having your own publishing company, Cumulative Press, will you be releasing your sci-fi book you wrote a couple years ago? I think it was called To Infinite Jest and Beyond. Sorry, no, I couldn't remember the actual title of the book and inserted the pun. I really did like the sample chapter, though, and would love to read the entirety of that book. And I got asked that question several times since talking about Cumulative Press existing. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, other folks who asked. I did, you're right, post a chapter of a very long novel that is more like sci-fi that I wrote. It's not really sci-fi, just future, but you call that sci-fi, I guess. I wrote it over the several years of COVID. It's long. I did not have success finding a publisher, as we know now. That should have been no stopping me. Honestly, I'm not sure about that one. There's a lot in that book that I'm proud of. Pound Foolish is ambitious. That one is really ambitious because it takes place 25 years in the future. There are kind of world reasons why that one might not see the light of day because it takes place, 25 years from now. And some of the stuff that I thought, that could only happen pretty far into the future kind of started happening in the actual world in the couple years since I wrote it. But anyway, it is hard to plan beyond the Pound Foolish situation because it's certainly currently kicking my butt. But I do thank you so much for asking. And we can segue into the Pound Foolish questions. Walker Dennis, East Longmeadow, Mass. Hey, Harris, when do I start getting bribed? So I'm going to say Friday. Let's officially say the first of the bribes will be announced on Friday. I'm sifting through the bribery suggestions that many of you sent in. So far, I guess something like 50 people have pre-ordered a copy of Pound Foolish and sent me a screen cap. Thank you so much for that. It's incredible. That means, the sooner you do it, the sooner you're going to have a chance to be bribed and win. Possibly, I think the idea is going to be to give people the option of a few different bribes when they win, because different people live different places and have different expectations and things that they would like, etc. And then maybe a couple of grand prizes later in the month. So if you'd like to be bribed, go to the show notes of this show. There's a link there that'll take you to Barnes & Noble, where all three versions, paperback, ebook, and audiobook, are all available for pre-order. Send me a screen cap. You'll be entered in time for Friday. Julie Red from Chicago. Not at all about my love life. Hey, Harris, you've mentioned Pound Foolish a few times, but you haven't really talked about what it's about. You should do that. It sounds really good. One question also. Do I have to have read Slotback Rhapsody to understand Pound Foolish, since it's a sequel? Thank you, Julie. And I'm not going to talk about dating. That's great. It's so nice not to have to talk about... Okay, so anyway, the first answer, I don't think you'll be lost reading the new book if you haven't read the first one. I think you might get a little extra out of it if you know Slotback, because the narrator of my first novel that I published while I was still at ESPN, it was I had graduated from MFA at UMass, and it was the first novel I got published by someone else, not me, way back in 2011. So that guy is one of the main characters of Pound Foolish, but it's more like Easter eggs. You won't be lost at all. It's not like they start talking about stuff that you wouldn't understand without reading Slotback. As for what Pound Foolish is about, so there's a serial killer in Detroit, and people on the local football team start thinking maybe it's a player who's doing the killing. So it's definitely a mystery. It's also just about an NFL season from the beginning to the end, what it takes to make it through a season. And it's also about, I guess, the NFL's place in contemporary American life, how big it is, what that means, the compromises we make as fans. We talk about that all the time on the show. We're rooting for laundry. The cognitive dissonance it requires to be NFL fans, the stuff we have to ignore. And we all definitely do. I'm a huge NFL fan, but I know I have to make compromises. So, yeah, there's a big mystery. There's kind of a philosophy of football in there as well. And finally, Troy Jacobs in Baton Rouge. Hey, Harris, I want to support you, but I do not listen to or read fiction books. Can I buy a copy for somebody else? So I very much appreciate that. And I got that from a few other folks as well, because this is the best audience ever assembled. What I'll say about that is, first of all, if you want to buy a book and not read it, that's okay too. I don't mind. And then as far as an exchange program goes, I'm open to suggestions. These books are being published by me, by Cumulative Press, but they are printed on demand when they're paperbacks. So it's tough for me to take money from one person and then send a book to another because I don't have the books. But maybe we can come up with some kind of idea. I also had one listener volunteer to buy several copies of books for folks who might otherwise not have the money for it. Amazing. Also hard to implement, but I'm open. If anyone has ideas about how to make that happen, or you want to help make it happen, I'm certainly listening. Hey, Harris at harrisfootball.com. It's amazing. Thank you so much for volunteering. All of your generosity is incredible. I really appreciate you.
Today's kickoff.
Okay, on today's show, the first full week of shows gets us rolling with some topics we've done before. First up, I'm going to talk about talent. I did, after all, spend, I guess, probably hundreds of hours rewatching the players play this summer, and it all gets boiled down to the film grades in the Almanac. So I'm going to talk through some of my top talents that I judged. You'd probably find some talent grade changes from last year's Almanac that put some players in a higher echelon for my expectations for 2026. After that, my guest will be Ross Tucker. You get to hear him call NFL games for CBS during the fall. He also makes an annual pilgrimage to the little podcast that could when I ask him to talk about some offensive lines he's got his eye on for the upcoming season. I think you'll have fun listening. I appreciate you being here today. Thrilled we are sponsored again this season by Hungry Root. I am really busy. I love it, the podcast, YouTube, the Almanac, the book. There's a lot going on, and I'm really grateful to have Hungry Root because, honestly, when you're busy, the temptation is to maybe not eat so healthy. But Hungry Root is both grocery delivery and provides great recipe ideas, an incredible time saver for me that I've been using for years. They have over 1,000 grocery items, easy to sort and choose. Something like 50,000 recipes to pick from where you pick one and it kind of immediately fills your basket with the items you need to make that thing, and they're very easy recipes. That's really what's new for me with Hungry Root. I'm so busy right now. It keeps me healthy. It keeps my eating on the rails. It's so worth trying. I think you'll like it as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first order, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Harris and use the code Harris. It is a lifesaver right now for me. hungryroot.com/Harris, code Harris, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life.
He's the lemon-flavored Italian ice.
Oh no, in fact, the Alfred Morrises of the world need not apply to this segment of today's show because I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some players I observed as being exceptional and not lemon-flavored for this year's Almanac. In particular, well, there are appendices in the back of the Almanac so you can see all the individual film grades that are, listed throughout the book, but they're all lined up by attribute in the appendices. So like quarterback arm strength, running back speed, wide receiver hands, tight end routes. Let's talk about some adjustments that I made kind of on the positive side. Mostly I've one negative to some players in the 2026 version of the document and how that maybe factors into the way that I'm ranking them here now that we're in August. I'll start out with Drake Maye.
Break out the footy pajamas.
I know. Listen, I have panic about Drake Maye. I remember C.J. Stroud's second year. I remember Jaden Daniels' second year. This is going to be Maye's second year as the full-time starter. It's easy to believe that a young quarterback is master of his destiny, only to have it revealed after the fact that everything was aligned perfect for that 1 year. But then you just, things get off kilter and boom, suddenly we're not even rostering a fantasy starter. Maye is my QB4 for the moment, so I guess consider me hooked. I've got the fish hook in my jaw. Will I likely wind up with the QB4 the way I tend to draft quarterbacks in a single quarterback league? Valid point, but not impossible, as long as other people in the league I'm playing in are waiting for quarterback as well. I could get him. And believe me, if anything, the grades that I gave Maye are even more disgusting than the fact that I'm rating him QB4, because Maye already had an A grade for his arm strength after his rookie year. We all knew he had a howitzer, but it's the accuracy grade. I bumped him from a B+ to a straight A. The kid tied for second among all quarterback qualifiers in air yards at the target, and yet led the league in completion percentage, 72%. And that is just hard to do. You're throwing it way down the field, and you're leading the league in throwing percentage. And of course, I don't care so much about the numbers. I was watching this film to write his profile, which I read in July on the show. As the numbers would indicate, we're not just talking about a bunch of dump-offs that lead to a 72% completion percentage. I'll grant you the Patriots' schedule was very easy, and I thought they played better defenses than they did offenses. They played terrible offenses. That's why they won those games. But for sure, it's a lot easier to be more accurate and to take chances down the field when you're playing from ahead and the other team is trying to make something happen and maybe sending pressure at you. It was just great film. That's all I can say. It's like, I'd love to be a contrarian, but Maye has that thing to me that when I see him bounce up on his toes and throw on time, I just trust that throw is going to be awesome and perfect and often way downfield and into a very tight window. It was a revelation to watch it around the second time this summer. Maybe it'll burn me. Maybe he'll turn out just like the other one-year wonders. But for right now, I certainly did buy it. For the speed side of running back, the two guys who got an A+ for speed were unchanged from last year, Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane. And the two guys who got an A+ for elusiveness, also the same as last year, Achane and Christian McCaffrey. But one change that I, thinking about what to talk about here, it stood out for me just for the straight-ahead speed stuff. He changed teams as well. Travis Etienne bumped him up from a B+ to an A-. So it's not like a massive upgrade, but it's also not really something I often find myself doing when I watch these film reviews for players who've been in the league. He's 27. He's been in the league 5 years now. He didn't play his rookie year, so we've got film on him for 4, but usually that's enough. There aren't usually often a lot of revelations film-wise when you're watching a player that far along in his career. I guess I'm not busting down any doors, just saying, it seems obvious now that Travis Steve must have been playing hurt in 2024 when the map maker Cartavius Bigsby kind of took over that Jacksonville backfield in the later part of the year. Etienne was really good in his last year with the Jags, 2025. He was that team's best offensive player. He made things go. I grant you that it's still a little disappointing that he's not as physical as you might expect at 215 pounds, but as far as speed goes, I thought he was sharper than ever, turning upfield and just dusting guys. He did break a few tackles here and there. Probably never going to be headed toward elite goal line status because he does have a tendency to bounce and to dance. But his speed was convincing in his walk year. And of course, he's in New Orleans now. As we talked about on the show in July, Alvin Kamara decides to take another pay cut to stick around. Not great. As we say, there's always another running back. That's the NFL now. But when that other guy is a franchise icon, he can be a little harder to do away with. Etienne absolutely has it in him to be a space player and catch a bunch of passes, but what are you keeping Kamara around for if you're not reserving that for him? But anyway, I have Etienne RB19 right now, and I kind of think it's because of the speed plays that I saw this summer. On the power side of running back, the climber who climbed the most, Javonte Williams, a long ago flag player, but as I said in the Almanac, I don't really get to reach back in time and celebrate that because we missed that year. It took another year. But for me, Williams climbs to an A- in power. He ran mean last year. I don't believe for 1 second the Cowboys knew what they had when they gave Miles Sanders basically the same free agent contract they gave to Williams, and they drafted Jaden Blue and Phil Maffa. But I give him credit for coming to the realization pretty quick. Now, Javonte isn't pretty quick. He doesn't really make that many people miss, but he sure does like to give horsey rides. This was a pile-moving running back last year and a tackle breaker. I remember this long run that I wrote about in the Almanac for his profile. It was against the Jets. I think I had probably forgotten about it until I was writing his profile. He had a defensive tackle around his legs, both arms, and he just kicked himself free from this monster, and there was nobody else, and it was off to the races, although notably he didn't actually score. I think it gained over 60 yards, but he got run down. Nobody has a backfield to himself. Let's stop thinking that. Malik Davis will probably annoy you at times, but you give me Javonte in the 4th, I would be thrilled. In the 3rd, I would probably do it. I might not be as thrilled, but close-in touchdown thumper, good physical player, A- power, I can see myself doing it. You want a big climber? Now, I know his foot is partially detached from his body. I'm glad we got that piece of stupidity over here early in the offseason. Let's talk about Rome Odunze. I bumped him in elusiveness among wide receivers from a B- to an A-. I know, the foot doesn't feel right. Everybody panic. Except, as I told you he would, Odunze just laughed at everybody because they took his awkward turn of phrase about how his foot felt not so great at the end of last year, and into the offseason, and they turned it into, this is a disaster. All I know is that before Footgate really became a thing, Andy Behrens and I undertook a deep dive into Odunze's second-year tape. And yes, late in the year, played like a hurt guy, no question. But before that, really good. His stop-start, he's 6'3". He is agile for 6'3". I said it on the Film Futures with Andy. There were times before the injury I thought he looked like Nico Collins. There are double moves. He's probably not the same kind of quick as Luther Burden. I also gave Burden an A- in this category, the elusiveness category, but it is different. Burden is much more your electric runner, the water bug type, and Odunze isn't that, but he's just smoother and more polished and more deliberate, but still, dang, I did not expect to find him as quick out of breaks as I did when we rewatched that film, and he probably could have had a bigger year even before the foot bugged him last year, but Caleb Williams was just really inconsistent. Anyway, I don't know anything really about ADP right now, but certainly folks in my orbit have been telling me that Luther Burden seems likely to go way higher than Rome Odunze. That is not how I have them ranked right now. As long as Odunze's foot stays attached, that's probably how I'm going to keep them. For the biggest hands jump into elite territory, I'm not going to go on and on about him. Pretty nice success story for the pod last year. Jaxon Smith-Njigba was a B+ in the hands department after his second year, and yeah, that was wrong. He's an A. He has to go do it again. It's 1 year. Not a made man yet, but we're drafting him like he is. What a damn performance all around. That just includes innumerable wonderful hands grabs, just all over the field. Fantastic work. One official drop all season. It was a bad one. It was in December against the Colts. It was a shallow cross where he might have scored an 80-yard touchdown. Would have liked that. It clanged off his hands, but he didn't do it any other time all year. What a season. Certainly, even though, yes, it's 1 year and things fell right for him and defenses are absolutely going to be keying on him, no question. So, like all the other players, we still can get burned, but he's earned enough trust out of me to be the number 2 overall wide receiver on my board, behind only Jamar Chase and a first-round pick if I'm selecting later in the first half of the first round. At tight end, my favorite position. Let's see. The 2 fastest tight ends in my eyes are Brock Bowers and Kyle Pitts. I think one of those is good, and the other not so much. I guess maybe a change I expected to make more so in the other direction. I dropped him a little bit on his routes, but only down to a B+, and I kept his speed rank at a C, because we all know this is it. This is probably the end for Travis Kelce, but he's still my tight end 11, and I'm going to admit, I kind of went into watching that film thinking, let's make him tight end 19, let's give him a D for speed. He's not. He's a C, I would say ish. Could be a C+ even. He's faster than like latter day Dallas Goedert, or at least the version of Dallas Goedert who scored all those touchdowns but could barely run last year. He's faster than all of the lumbering Oves, rookies accepted, of course, who play tight end for the Steelers. And I downgraded him. I took him from a B+, from an A- down to a B+ in routes, but I still gave him a B+. Like, I found that film to be kind of sneaky. He's not running past anybody, and he really wasn't making any big plays, but he's crafty. He knows where to settle down. He pushes off a lot. He turns 37 in October, quarterback coming off a torn ACL. I did come away from watching the Kelce film feeling like, okay, last year he did 76 for 851 and 5 touchdowns. He kind of did it in his sleep. I kind of think it's still possible. I don't think the ceiling is very high, but I did not expect to think the floor would be high. Kind of think it is. So anyway, fun for me to dive back into these grades and remember what I changed and why. You can, of course, find all the profiles with all the film grades in the Almanac if you so desire. We are sponsored by Fantasy Cares. You know Fantasy Cares, even if you don't know you know it, because one of the major things Fantasy Cares does is the Scott Fish Bowl, the big event that many of us did in July. You know that's all for charity. I'm thrilled to do it. Fantasy Cares is also more than the Fish Bowl. You can add a charitable element to your league. Just donating one team's worth of entry fee from your league makes a big difference in being able to give to dozens of charities, including, of course, Toys for Tots, which is one of Scott's true passions. And this time of year, Fantasy Cares has tons of other things going on too. You can still participate in varieties of the Fish Bowl. You can play in the Fantasy Cares Survivor League, the Fantasy Cares Pick'em. There are giveaways. There's merch. You can learn about all this at fantasycares.org. You can see if your own league would like to contribute to Fantasy Cares, and or you can find those fun games that you can play before the season starts. Check it all out. fantasycares.org.
Today's guest.
And today's guest is our friend Ross Tucker. You can find him on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, on which I guested. I guess today, we recorded it yesterday, but we don't need to tell the folks that. The magic of recording things. That's out right now. That was a fun segment that we did together. And now Ross is here. He also hosts the Even Money podcast, a little wagering. He also hosts the College Draft podcast because he has a lot of shows, which is why he is a very, very busy man. And of course, you may know he also helps cover the Eagles in the preseason, and he calls NFL games on CBS. He knows a lot. It's Ross Tucker. Hi, Ross.
Christopher, what's up, man? Long time no talk.
Yeah, man. I like how when we say hello beforehand, you're like, "What's going on, Chris?" And then we hit the button. You go, "Hi, Christopher."
You know what? I've asked you this before. I swear I go back and forth. Give me like the lowdown, because I think
Chris
this is
is fine.
interesting when someone's an adult. Give me the lowdown between Chris and Christopher.
Christopher just sounds like we don't know each other because I'm so used to being called Chris. So when people, because most people on the show call me Chris, or they call me Harris. You can call me Harris if you want, but you can also call me Christopher. It's fine. Doesn't matter.
Well, it's just funny because like you're listed everywhere, Christopher.
I know. It's
and
true.
that's so like even like when we used to be at the 4-letter network today, I think you used to say Christopher Harris. I can't remember, but
I did.
At any rate,
I did.
Chris is a lot easier.
Yeah, man. I know. It's all good. So, all right. Well, we have you on every year to do this particular thing because it's a thing that you have professional experience with. You used to play offensive line in the NFL. And I don't mean to suggest that it's the only thing you know about the NFL, because I just want to. I mean, we had you on the Yacht Club show. Me and Andy Behrens did back in the winter. It was an awesome show. If you haven't listened, one of my favorite that we did the entire winter. And we got a full appreciation for your story, you know, how you became a sports fan, how you became interested both in playing and announcing games. The audience knows this, so this is going to sound like I'm fluffing you up a little bit, but I talk about you a lot on the show as the games go by, because you are truly very, very good at the job of being an analyst, like an in-game analyst. Processing what you see in real time and being able to say it in an interesting way is not something I take for granted. I watch all the stupid games and not that many people do it. So I just want you to know that I don't consider you only an O-line guy, even though that's what we're going to talk about here.
Well, you say that every time, and I mean this in all sincerity. It means a lot. It really does, because, you know, there aren't that many people like you that actually go through and watch all of the games, but I know several that do. Probably a mutual friend of ours, I'm sure you know him, Greg Rosenthal, who does the NFL Daily podcast for NFL.com. I've known Greg for a long time. He goes through and watches all the games, and there are others as well. And it's really humbling and really cool that the people that actually watch all the games are the ones typically that reach out and say, "No, you don't understand, man. I'm not just saying this to you because I know you or because you're on the show. I watch all the games, and you are really good." So I take that as the ultimate compliment by the people that I know are it's great when one person says, I thought you did a great job. And it's, there's always going to be people that say one person says, I didn't like it, whatever. That doesn't matter. It's when you know someone really is taking in that large of a sample size,
Right.
and that I still stand out to them positively, and football, and and you're really into it, that really means a lot. So I appreciate you saying it. Feel free to say it like 5 or 10 more times during today's episode. Feel free to tell everybody you know. That's my running line when someone says, dude, you're really good. I really like you. I'm like, thanks, man. Tell everybody you know. Tell everybody you know.
Exactly. Tell the CBS exec. I hear there's maybe a vacancy at CBS, so I'm not going to talk about that with you right now. Let's talk offensive lines. You nominate every year you come on. You nominate 6 interesting offensive lines, sometimes for the good, interesting, sometimes for the bad, interesting, and we kind of just walk through them. We'll get to them as fast as we can here, so we can get to all of them and maybe talk through the implications. I know just because you're very close to the Philly situation and you do call their preseason games, you want to talk about the Eagles' offensive line, which was very banged up last year, but there are questions about whether it was just about injury last season.
Exactly. And I think anybody listening can Google offensive line rankings, and there are people out there that have them, Warren Sharp or PFF or whoever, right? Go ahead and you can find rankings. What I think is a little bit more interesting from my perspective is to try to provide some context of where teams might be ranked or where people perceive that they are, and why I think there's actually a decent amount of variance for where they could be, or try to provide context for what the range of outcomes is. So I picked 6 teams, Chris, that for various reasons I have my eye on, because there's a wide range of outcomes for just how good they're going to be this year as a unit. And by the way, just as an aside, I think we've talked about this before, you're really only as good as your weakest link as an offensive line. Mm-hmm. And I say this to people all the time. I would rather have 5 average offensive linemen than have 3 all-pros and 2 below average. Mm-hmm. Because there's really not that much the all-pros can do to help the 2 below average guys. And what do you think the defense are going to do? They're going to hunt up those 2 below average guys, and they're going to get after them. And yes, you can try to help them, and you can slide to them and all those things. But it's more important that you're not bad than it is that you're really good as an individual across the line, if that makes sense. So with that context, let's start with the Eagles, because they do have a lot of really good players. And they have for years. And they're typically at the top of all of these O-line rankings. And I would submit to you, based on how they played last year, they probably don't deserve to be ranked as high as they are.
Sure.
If you looked at just how they performed pass protection, how they performed in the run game last year, you would say, okay, that was not a top 5 offensive line. But yet, you see all the O-line rankings out there, and they're in the top 5 of all of them, or at least most of them.
Yeah, I've seen.
And probably, and probably deservingly so. And so, the 2 areas that you really need to think about: their center, Cam Jurgens, and left guard Landon Dickerson, both fought through really bad injuries to play in the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. As a result, they had off-season surgery. And so they were rehabbing all off-season. And then, Chris, they both got hurt again during the season. Landon Dickerson got hurt during training camp and had a second surgery before the season started, and was basically fighting through that, and trying to recover from that all year. And then Cam Jurgens had a second injury. I don't believe he had to have it operated on, but he missed like the Packers games and others with his injury during the season. So both these guys suffered multiple injuries. It affected their performance, and notable for touchdown scoring, it affected the tush push because Landon Dickerson's the number one driver of it. Both those guys reportedly went to Colombia to get stem cell treatment. So they've been practicing thus far. It looks like they're a lot healthier than they were last year. But between those two guys and Lane Johnson missing the second half of the season with plantar fasciitis, I mean, you had a bunch of injuries. 3 of their top 5 offensive linemen either weren't playing at all or were dealing with a number of ailments. So you would think, number one, that they'll be better just based on those guys being healthier. But then with the new offense is much more offensive line friendly. In the past, there was not a ton of play action. They had a lot of straight drop back passing where the offensive tackles were on islands. If you listen to Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, they are absolutely raving about the ability to have help as pass protectors and to run more play action, which is a lot easier pass protection for an offensive line than is straight drop back. So I would say the combo of injuries and the new, more offensive line friendly offensive scheme under new coordinator Sean Mannion really gives the Eagles a high ceiling and probably a high floor for just how good they could be. I mean, they could get back to being, theoretically, that 2024 line where I thought they were clearly by far the best offensive line in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great news for Saquon. But let's talk about the Chargers because they obviously became a wasteland after week 4 last year. They lose both starting tackles. Now both guys are back, question mark. Like, I don't love seeing that Joe Alt still wasn't ready to partake fully in training camp to start, but I assume they better have an answer. They better have Slater and Alt ready.
Well, there's actually a lot of similarities between everything I just said about the Eagles and the Chargers. They also have a new offensive scheme and system with Mike McDaniel, which is, the Shanahan-McVay tree, which is more offensive line friendly. They also have, their 2 best offensive linemen coming off of major injuries, and Slater at left tackle, Alt at right tackle. What I find interesting in particular about the Chargers offensive line is the interior. I don't love question marks, Chris. A lot of question marks. How does Slater come back from the health injury? How does Alt come back from the injury? Then Biadasz finished the year with an injury in Washington. He'll be their center. Jake Slaughter at left guard played center at Florida. As a guy that played both, left guard is significantly harder than center from a pass protection standpoint. Is Jake Slaughter going to be ready to roll as a pass blocker at left guard? And then Cole Strange. It didn't really work out for him in New England. He did some positive things last year. Yeah, he did some positive things last year with Mike McDaniel in Miami. But there are legitimate questions at all 5 spots. It might work out really well. Sometimes it does. But I prefer lines that are going into a season with as few question marks as possible, whereas there are 5 legitimate question marks across the board for that Chargers offensive line.
We are sponsored by Raycon. I am wearing my Raycon open earbuds to record this show. I'm talking to Ross with the open earbuds in my ears right now. I wear earbuds a lot. The open earbuds, they sit just outside your ear canal, so the sound is really great, but I can also hear what's happening around me. So like if you run or ride a bike outside, it's way safer than plugging up the ear canal. Truly comfortable. Truly great for just being around the house. They never fall out. I can have them on for hours. I wear them at a coffee shop sometimes, walking around downtown LA, never have to be worried about hearing traffic. And it really is great sound quality. Ross sounds great this very moment. I think it's like 36 hours of battery life with the charging case, and there's a 30-day guarantee, and Raycon has over 3 million customers, and they're simply not as expensive as other earbuds. The Essential Open earbuds are the perfect idea for back to school or just for your life. And also for this talk with Ross, get 20% off when you go to buyraycon.com/HarrisOpen. 20% off. buyraycon.com/HarrisOpen. We are back with Ross, and we are talking about some offensive lines with some high variability, some upside, but some scary downside. Who do you want to talk about next, Ross?
Let's do Carolina, because they've obviously been the subject of a lot of conversation already this season because of the injuries, really everywhere, but in particular on the offensive line.
The tackles.
Yeah, so they'll probably be fine in the interior. Not really worried about them. But at the tackles, Taylor Moton with these blood clots, they say it's going to go into the season. Nobody seems to really know how long it will go into the season. They did sign Rasheed Walker because they knew Ekwonu was coming off of the injury. I thought it was, a little surprising how tepid the market was for Rasheed Walker. So at least to start the year, they'll have Rasheed Walker and it appears the rookie Monroe Freeling at right tackle. I thought their offensive line was a strength last year. That was a positive, especially in the run game. I don't know that that's going to be the case because both those guys, Freeling obviously being not only a rookie, but a young rookie, Walker in a new system. Those are just guys to keep an eye on. Obviously not the way the Panthers were hoping to draw it up. I think that they felt like Moton was locked in and then maybe Freeling and Walker could compete for that left tackle job. Instead, they both have to play. And then, by the way, that always means one of those guys goes down, then you're going to essentially your fifth tackle, and that's a guy that the Panthers never were expecting to play.
Yeah, so the left tackle, Ekwonu, he hurt himself in the playoffs, right? He ruptured patellar tendon. Am I right about
so they
that?
knew he was going to be out.
Right. So this is he's a good player. I don't think people realize what a good left tackle he is, and that's a big loss. When you think about that Carolina running game and Rico Dowdle moves on, and I have a history with Chuba Hubbard where I really wanted him to be good last year. He got hurt himself and wasn't good. Is this a siren for you for fantasy purposes to go, okay, don't get too aggressive with the likes of Chuba Hubbard and Jonathan Brooks himself coming back from major injury?
Well, yeah, especially because with both those guys and Etienne, it feels like they're gonna spread the wealth there too. I think the reports indicate, people I've talked to, that they really do want to lean on the run game to protect the tackles, to protect Bryce Young. I don't know that they love their receiving core. So I think that all those guys are going to get touches, and you're more the expert on this than me, but it feels like it's anybody's guess. I mean, obviously Hubbard's in the lead, but it's anybody's guess just how they divvy up those touches ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said it twice on the show today, like, there's no such thing as a running back who gets everything anymore, so you're really looking for a good player who's got the lead, and maybe Hubbard can be that, but I said that last year. And you're right, though, like, better for the running game, better have a good interior line than tackles, because you can protect the tackles with the running game, as you said. It is a good point. The Ravens offense, that line last year, I mean that entire offense last year just got decimated. I guess we could argue the entire team got decimated because the defense was a mess by the end of the season too. Lamar was hurt. Only guy who wasn't hurt was 89-year-old Derrick Henry. Isn't isn't 33? Isn't that really old? Wow, 33. Wow, he's ancient compared to you and me, Ross. How are you feeling about the Ravens' effort to reconstruct that offensive line?
Well, I'll just say this about Derrick Henry. He is a unicorn.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back and see the usage in high school and college, and for him to still be playing at this level, at that size, I would have never thought this was possible. Yeah. I've been telling people to sell Derrick Henry for like 4 or 5 years. So I'm the wrong guy. I just thought the amount of punishment he's taken, the wear and tear, the usage, the size, and yet, I mean, he just keeps doing it. The guy eats like one meal, and it's like 10 chicken breasts at 8 o'clock at night. I don't know. Whatever he is doing, it's incredible. But the offensive line, they have a new offense as well with Declan Doyle. So you're going to see a lot of more under center from them. Stop me if you heard this before. More under center, more play action, blah, blah, blah. But they've totally revamped the interior of the offensive line. You know, Ethan Posich should be the center. He's coming off a major injury. And then they brought back Simpson, who had been there and then went to the Jets. They took Vega Ione in the first round out of Penn State. So, you know, I'm a big believer in continuity and chemistry up front. So when you've got a line that is 3 new guys, Ione played left guard at Penn State. Seems like they're going to have him play right in Baltimore. You know, I don't know that that's been determined yet, but there's just there's again those question marks, and if they get answered in the affirmative, then that's a great sign, and that, you know, they'll probably have a pretty good line. But I have question marks for every one of the interior guys, and so not just individually question marks, but then them working together collectively, there's a lot that needs to be worked out there.
Is Ronnie Stanley still, you know, people, I mean, he's been around a long time, and he's been a prototype left tackle for a long time also. He's also going to be 33 coming up. Is he still elite?
I didn't think either one of their tackles played as well as I anticipated them playing last year. I would say that with both Ronnie and Rosengarten. I mean, they're fine, but I think there was some thought that maybe those guys would be one of the better combos in the NFL. I did not think that they performed to that level, either side.
Who do you want to talk about next?
Let's go. The last 2 teams I want to talk about are the Titans and the Browns. I think the Titans are fascinating because, you know, I have Greg Cosell, who I'm a big fan of. Yeah. The 47-plus year veteran of NFL films, which is just incredible. He comes on my show every week, the Raw Sucker Football Podcast, twice a week, by the way, during the season. So we get through all the games. And he was down. This is super important. He was down at Titans minicamp. I don't know if he's been at training camp yet, but they specifically brought in Austin Schlottmann to play center because the offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, had him with the Giants, trusts Schlottmann, knows that Schlottmann knows his offense and is a smart guy. But what Greg said, Chris, is that they want to go up-tempo. They want to go up-tempo, and to go up-tempo, you have to have a quarterback, a center that really sees it, can get the guys lined up quick, make the call, and go. So this isn't just an offensive line observation. This is for any fantasy guys on the Titans, we like volume. We like up-tempo. We like a lot of snaps. We like moving fast. So I feel like that's notable for Cam Ward and Pollard and Carnell Tate and anybody you want to throw in there. And I thought that'd be a good nugget for your listeners, Chris, is that the expectation is that the Titans are going to try to really go fast this year, which will be something to watch because guys like Volson at right guard, Schlottmann at center, these are guys that are not considered even average starters in the NFL, and yet the Titans have them currently pegged to be next to each other up front.
Nothing like going fast when you stink.
That's actually a really good point. I'm not going to say the Titans stink. What I will say is that, they're obviously not favored to win a lot of games and are projected to win a lot of games. You typically, when you feel that way, you want to shorten the game. You want to milk clock. You want to go take longer on the clock. But they have their reasons, and they clearly feel like with Cam Ward and with their skill guys that they might be best suited to an up-tempo offense because evidently, unless they're lying to Greg, that's the plan.
Right. I mean, first of all, everybody kind of says that in August, and then you get hit in the mouth and you go, oh, I guess we can't go fast. And I didn't really mean nothing like going up tempo when the team stinks. I meant like you think these two new guys with the Titans, Schlottmann and Volson, are like they haven't been good players in the league yet. And so like it's scary a little bit to go up tempo with players, offensive linemen who aren't good. But then again, they might be better than we think, and they might coach them up. And everybody listening knows this. I mean, I want Titans. I want Dolphins. I want Jets. I want Raiders, whoever the Cardinals. Like, I'll draft those, not early, but like in a fantasy draft, those guys will get ignored. The good players on those teams will get ignored because everybody will decide they're bad, and then we get to the season and half of them will turn out to be pretty good, and the Titans might be one of them, and it might be for exactly the reason you're talking about. I mean, plenty of examples of teams that turn it around from year to year. Lastly, the Browns. I think we even talked about the Browns on the show when you came on last year, and we talked about, they're trying it again. It's the same old guys who we all know the names of, and they're going to see if they can make it work, despite the fact that they all get injured. It clearly did not work. They have finally decided to blow it up. What do you think?
This is the grand experiment. I can't remember another team doing this where they essentially moved on from all 5 starting offensive linemen.
Yep.
And it's more or less an entirely new group. I know Tevin Jenkins was on the team last year and got some playing time, but he wasn't, Wyatt Teller was the right guard. It wasn't Tevin Jenkins. So to draft Spencer Fano, to bring in Zion Johnson, Elton Jenkins, Titus Howard. By the way, all those guys have done some good things in the league, and there's a very real chance that the Browns' offensive line performs well. We just haven't seen this. We just haven't seen a team start free agency with 0 offensive linemen, 0 starting offensive linemen, and yet that is the tactic that this Browns team is taking. I can't wait to see it. I think continuity and chemistry really matter. They're kind of going the other way, and maybe these guys can build it together. The good news is most of them have played a decent amount of football, so it's not like it's 3 or 4 rookies up there. But I think it's going to be wildly entertaining to see how well this Browns offensive line can play, especially early, given all the new guys kind of all being thrown together at once.
And I got to be honest, like I don't know Spencer Fano from a hole in the ground. He's probably good. He got taken really high in the draft. Cool. He's a rookie, but I've seen enough Zion Johnson in my life. I've seen enough Titus Howard in my life, to be honest. You're right. They've done some good things, but like the Chargers were desperate for offensive line help, and Zion Johnson was there. And part of the reason they were desperate for help is because he stunk. So I'm scared. I mean, I know stunk is too harsh, and these things are on a grade. I'm saying it for a fact, but if you're assembling a team of the Avengers and 2 or 3 of them are your DoorDash representative, I suspect that there might be some hiccups. Let's put it that way.
Well, yes, the question, especially early, and that's the case for a lot of these lines. The question is, how quickly do they gel? The guys coming back from injury, the guys on new teams, the guys in new offenses. that's kind of the the billion-dollar question is how quickly these lines gel throughout the year. How are they playing in December is what really matters for both fantasy football and for real football.
For sure. And like Elton Jenkins has always been a pretty good player. I think the Packers probably would have liked to hang on to him. I'm not down on every single member of that offensive line. I don't know about as much about them. I know what gets said about them, but I'm not really a great evaluator of technique. So I will admit it's possible that Titus Howard's better than I know, and the Texans kind of just couldn't figure him out. I got to say I'm a little skeptical about Zion Johnson, but we'll see. Excellent. Well, good conversation about these high variability offensive lines. Thank you so much for coming on, Ross. If you'd like to hear Ross every day, he does a podcast like we do a podcast every day. It's Ross Tucker Football. And like Ross mentioned, Greg Cosell, who's amazing, comes on every week, twice during the season. There's also the Even Money podcast, if you'd like some handicapping tips. There's the College Draft podcast that keeps track of the prospects as they're working their way through the college football season and into the draft area. You're a busy man. I appreciate you taking the time every year to come on the show, and really appreciate your insight.
It is my pleasure, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored that you have me on every year. I'm humbled always by your kind words about me as a broadcaster. Fired up for this year, and very thankful that you came on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast today, because I don't have a fantasy show anymore. So I needed your 30,000 foot view overview. That was awesome, very well received. Truly appreciate it.
And thank you so much for listening. It was very fun to be on Ross's show as well, and so happy to have him here. Let me thank the 3 sponsors that made today's show possible. We had Hungry Root, we had Fantasy Cares, and we had Raycon. If you are interested in what I had to say about any of today's sponsors, you can find their information in today's show notes. All the current sponsors are always listed at harrisfootball.com. When you pick out a sponsor and use the codes and stuff, that lets them know that supporting the show works, and that's how this whole thing keeps going. I'm always in awe of how well you support the sponsors. I appreciate it so much. That will do it for this episode here on a Tuesday. Coming up on Wednesday, for those in the Yacht Club, Andy Behrens on his new/old day, Wednesday mornings. We'll have Andy on. We're going to talk about some players who might lose their jobs, and then we'll all meet back here on Thursday on the main show. My guest will be JJ Zachariason. We're going to do some film room heroes, just players we like watching film on, and maybe that'll translate to fantasy, but doesn't have to. Just guys we like, basically. We're going to talk about that with JJ. That's going to be a blast. If you'd like to get bribed, if you'd like to get entered to be bribed on Friday, you can go get a copy of the book. A link is in the show notes. You can also get an almanac. You can also just take it easy, and that's all great too. I appreciate you listening so very much. Until then, thanks again so much for listening. Your hat is awesome. You're awesome for wearing it. I will talk to you next time.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The closing theme is Say Yes by The Wellspring. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.
Say yes. Say yes.